said that if Iran decides to close the Strait of Hormuz in the coming days, the United States will not collapse. America has already prepared its alternatives. But what are those alternatives? That is exactly what we're going to explain today in a simple and clear way. Before we talk about alternatives, let us first understand why the Strait of Hormuz matters so much. Look at the map. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow strip of water sitting between Iran on one side and Oman and UAE on the other side. It is only about 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. But do not let that small size fool you. This tiny stretch of water is one of the most important geographical points on the entire planet. Why? Because approximately 20% of the world's total oil supply passes through this strait every single day. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, UAE, and Qatar, all of these major oil producers use this strait to send their oil to the rest of the world. If this strait closes, a massive amount of global oil supply simply stops moving. Now, the big question is, what does America do if that happens? First, let us understand where America stands today with its oil. Many people think that America is completely dependent on Middle Eastern oil, but that is not fully true anymore. Over the last 15 years, the United States made a huge strategic shift. Through a technology called shale oil extraction, also known as fracking, America turned itself into one of the largest oil producers in the entire world. Today, the United States produces more than 13 million barrels of oil per day from its own soil. This makes it the #1 oil-producing country in the world, ahead of Saudi Arabia and Russia. So America is not starting from zero. It already has a strong domestic base. But here's the catch. America still imports oil. It still needs oil from outside because its refineries, its industries, and its economy run at a scale that even 13 million barrels per day cannot fully satisfy alone. So the question becomes, if Hormuz closes, which outside sources does America turn to? The first and most immediate alternative for the United States is simply to produce more oil from its own land. America sits on enormous shale oil reserves, particularly in places like the Permian Basin in Texas, the Bakken Formation in North Dakota, and the Eagle Ford region. These are massive underground oil deposits that can be tapped relatively quickly compared to traditional oil fields. If Hormuz closes and oil prices rise sharply, American shale oil companies would have a very strong financial reason to increase their production immediately. Higher oil prices mean higher profits for these companies, which means they will drill more, extract more, and supply more. This is a self-correcting mechanism. The market pressure created by a Hormuz closure would automatically push American domestic production higher within weeks and months. It would not solve everything overnight, but it would significantly reduce America's dependence on outside sources. The second alternative is right next door. Canada and Mexico are America's two closest neighbors, and both are major oil suppliers to the United States. Canada is actually the single largest foreign supplier of oil to America today. Canadian oil comes through pipelines directly into the United States. It does not travel through any ocean, any strait, or any dangerous shipping land. It moves through land pipelines, which are far more secure and reliable. If the Strait of Hormuz closes, America can negotiate with Canada to increase the flow of oil through existing pipelines and potentially build or expand new ones. The oil sands of Alberta in Canada hold some of the largest oil reserves in the entire world, and that oil can reach American refineries without ever touching the Persian Gulf. Mexico, similarly, exports a significant amount of oil to the United States through the Gulf of Mexico. This route is also completely independent of the Strait of Hormuz. A crisis in the Persian Gulf does not affect the flow of oil between Mexico and the United States at all. Together, Canada and Mexico form a strong North American energy shield that America can rely on heavily if Hormuz is shut. The third option is one that America has quietly been building for decades. It is called the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, or SPR. The United States government stores hundreds of millions of barrels of crude oil in underground salt caverns located along the Gulf Coast of Texas and Louisiana. This reserve was specifically created for emergencies, exactly the kind of situation where a major global supply route gets blocked. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve can release millions of barrels of oil per day into the American market. It acts as an emergency buffer that buys America time. While it is not a permanent solution, it can stabilize the market during the initial shock of a Hormuz closure and give America the breathing room it needs to activate its other alternatives. In recent years, America has used this reserve during previous energy crises, which means the system is tested and ready. In a Hormuz scenario, the government can order an immediate release to prevent panic in the market. The fourth alternative takes us to a different part of the world entirely. West Africa and Latin America have emerged as major oil-producing regions that supply America without any connection to the Strait of Hormuz. Countries like Nigeria, Angola, and Gabon in West Africa produce millions of barrels of oil daily, and a significant portion of this oil already flows to the United States. Their oil travels across the Atlantic Ocean directly to American ports, completely bypassing the Persian Gulf. Similarly, in Latin America, countries like Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela sit on massive oil reserves. Brazil, in particular, has developed deep-water offshore oil fields that have made it one of the fastest-growing oil producers in the world. American energy companies already have strong relationships and investments in these regions. If Hormuz closes and America needs to replace Gulf oil quickly, it can increase its purchases from West Africa and Latin America through existing trade relationships. These are reliable, tested routes that are entirely independent of any Middle Eastern geography.
There is also a fifth option, and this one is particularly interesting from a geographical perspective. Several Gulf countries have actually already built oil pipelines specifically designed to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. Saudi Arabia, for example, has the East-West pipeline, also called the Petroline, which runs from the eastern province of Saudi Arabia all the way to the Red Sea port of Yanbu on the western side of the country. This pipeline can carry millions of barrels of oil per day directly to the Red Sea, where tankers can then ship the oil to the Suez Canal and onwards to global markets, completely avoiding the Strait of Hormuz. The UAE similarly has the Abu Dhabi crude oil pipeline, which runs to the port of Fujairah on the Gulf of Oman, again bypassing Hormuz entirely. If Iran closes the strait, these countries would immediately activate these bypass pipelines at full capacity, allowing a portion of Gulf oil to continue reaching world markets, including the United States. The Strait of Hormuz is powerful, but it is not the only road. For America, it is one road among many. And as Professor Zhang explains, a country that produces more oil than anyone else in the world, stores hundreds of millions of barrels underground, and buys from neighbors connected by pipelines, that country has options. Iran closing Hormuz would be a crisis, but for America, it would not be the end of the road. It would simply be the moment when those backup roads get used.